Happy Wednesday, my friend. It is so good to see you, especially I missed you last Wednesday. We weren't together and it made me sad. So I wanted to say hi to Giacomo and Andrew and Kim and Jeff and Lexi. Man, it is so great to see everybody joining us. I promise we're a really fun bunch here. If you didn't know that already, if it's your first time joining us, come on in, pull up a chair. We are all friends here. There's plenty of room. If you haven't already, say hi in the chat. Let us know where you're coming in from. I'm coming in from Austin, Texas with some nice raspberry tea. And yes, it's hot. And I know that that's crazy because it's hot in Texas, but my air conditioning is very cold. So it's a little bit of a mix, but it is so good to see you. I'm really excited that we have so many wonderful people joining us. Hi to Alexandra from Johannesburg. Good to see you. Hope the weather is amazing. So, you know that I all the time talk about the power of connections, the power that you get from having great communities like this one, the resources, the tips, the tricks, the tactics. And today is literally sort of a culmination of that in so many ways, because you might remember a few months back, we had an amazing guest in Leanne Davey on with us. And I was talking to Leanne a little bit after the live, after we hung out with everybody, and just said, hey, I'm curious, like, you were so great, obviously. And do you know anybody else that you think would be a really wonderful addition? Because what I'm really looking for is someone who's going to help everybody, myself included, tell a new story for themselves. And I think sometimes the reason I had asked specifically about that one topic area is I think sometimes when we don't readdress the stories that we're telling about ourselves, maybe sometimes even to ourselves, they tend to get a little stale. And sometimes, quite frankly, when we don't have that outside perspective, when we don't have that guide work, it can be hard because then maybe the story that we're creating for ourselves, we think makes total sense. Like, good job, Kim, you nailed it. And to everybody else, they're going, well, that just sounds crazy. I don't know where that girl came up with that. So I just thought it would be really interesting. And so anyways, again, full circle, I said, Leanne, do you know anyone? And she was like, oh, do I have the person that you need to talk to? And I was like, yes, this is amazing. Like, I'm so excited. And so therefore, I'm so excited for you to meet Kristina. So hopefully you did a little bit of Google stalking about her already. She is an amazing world-class marketer, storyteller. She's also an author of, I love this book title. We'll drop it in the comments as well, but it's The Hollywood Approach: Script Your Life Like a Hit Movie and Live Your Wildest Dream. I mean, sign me up. I want to star in my own best movie, and I want it to be an Academy Award winning movie, as I'm sure we all do. So I'm really excited for Kristina to join us today and have us, answer some questions about this and hopefully learn to tell our stories a little bit better. So help me in welcoming Kristina to coffee.
Hello, it's so great to be here. Hello, everyone. I'm watching your comments in the comments box. This is so exciting.
I have to say, if we are all scripting our own movie, your opening scene is divine. The plants, the book, I love everything about it.
Thank you. Yes, I've just moved into this office with my planty plant background again. So it's either this or my writing board, which looks like I'm Russell Crowe in The Beautiful Mind. So we'll do the flowers and the plants today.
Oh, I love it. Well, obviously you heard me talk about it a little bit in the opener. I think telling our stories are so important. And I'm curious, just knock it off the bat in case there's anybody joining us who's like, but is it actually that important? What would you say to someone that's kind of on the fence if our stories are important?
If our personal stories are important, I would defer to the late and great cultural anthropologist Angeles Arrien, who studied Indigenous peoples and peoples cross-culturally over all aspects of time. And she says, when there is something wrong with you, like when you feel sad or you're not joyful, when you're not at your best, when something is sad or you're hurt or you're just not firing on all cylinders, she asked one question, and healers across all cultures ask a question. When did you stop being enchanted with your story? When did you stop being enchanted with your story? And she goes on and has like this whole fantastic explanation, but you just think about that and you think, when someone says, how are you? What are you working on? What are you interested in right now? What's lighting you up? What did you do that was great this last year? And if you don't have an amazing story, or just you haven't done anything that you're that excited about because of whatever reason, like that kind of that's a litmus test right there. And I'd love to see people just comment yes or no. Like, can you feel that? Yes. Ellen loves her book, The Fourfold Way. I'm listening to it again. It's just so powerful. And she has so many great things where she talks about the power of story and music and dance being a healing salve across all cultures of all times. So that is what I would say right now in this moment about what if you don't think your story and the story you're living and also the story you're telling is important.
Well, and I love this idea of, okay, we know it's important. We know that we need to maybe potentially start to do some rewriting, start to do some reworking of what we're doing. But if we're new to this, so, Felicia's kind of saying like, I'm a little new, I'm excited, I'm intimidating. What are maybe one or two common mistakes that you see, or missed opportunities? I won't have a mistake. I'll say missed opportunities when it comes to people that are just starting with this whole storytelling idea when it comes to themselves.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of different contexts for which this applies, right? There's the storytelling of I've seen a couple people here are maybe looking for a job or looking to enhance their storytelling for their business, or maybe it's social aspects, or maybe it's your legacy. Maybe you're like, dude, I want to be living my best life. So when I'm in the old folks home, and I say this all the time, I've been saying this since my 30s. I'm like, I want to be the most entertaining cat like on the scene, and I want to be invited to all the parties that I can roll to in my chair at that point. So it really depends on your context, right? So, but within that, one of the things that I find myself saying to my book clients, my authors, my speakers, and also my private coaching clients, the people taking my life skills class, is we need to be more, the world needs you to be more you. We need you to be the most you can be. And that kind of sounds a little woo-woo and a little like, what does that mean? She's saying something without saying something, but what that means is diving into your own character DNA. And what that means is looking and analyzing your strengths, your what I call flawesomeness, which is your flaws plus your awesomeness, and how you overcome that flaw to reach your goal in the story. And then also understanding your superpowers within the context of a specific story. And so I could go on and on. I could name the 3 key components of a story and not like all of the things. But if we boil it down to what is one thing you need to focus on to be a better storyteller about yourself, or to be living a better story in your own life, is what are the distinctions of your character DNA?
Got it. So when we're thinking about like our character DNA, we say, okay, maybe to Jeff's point, I like who I am. I love the story that I've been living so far. I feel enchanted with what I've done, but I feel like I'm not communicating it properly. Kind of what I alluded to earlier. I think sometimes we hear things, at least I'll speak for myself. Sometimes I either write or say or tell something and I'm like, yes, Kim, like nailed it. So good. And then I will ask other people and they're like, it could use some work. And I'm kind of shocked because I'm like, oh wow, I really thought I killed that. So if someone's like, I know I have a good story, but maybe I'm not communicating it to the best of the ability, what are some tactics? Is it, telling friends? Is it kind of practicing on people, A/B testing?
That's a great question. And again, I think context is really crucial. In what context are you telling the story? So a few questions I would ask you to consider if that's your case. You don't know how to tell it properly. Number one is, who's the audience? Because if you're telling your story to a Hollywood producer because you want to sell a screenplay about your life, and you also have written a screenplay about your life and you want to sell it for $1.5 million, that's a very different example than, I have a story and I'm in a new town, or I'm traveling, or I'm whatever. I just want to meet new people. And right. I want to have like a little, 45-second intro of myself. Very different context. So again, number one is, who is your audience? I would also, like, really quickly after that, be thinking, again, in the context, like, how long do you have? If it's a pitch meeting, you may know you have 10 or 15 minutes. But if you're just like, hey, I'm KP, nice to meet you. I'm this, or, I'm your friend if you need to go to IKEA and buy that one thing and not 1,000, just what is the context? Like, you do not need to give someone your entire like bibliography of your resume ever. You don't ever need to, not even on LinkedIn anymore. They say, the LinkedIn experts say, don't even do that. So think about the context, think about the length of time, think about the tone. Like, are we being funny? Are we inviting people in, or do we think we're having like an hour-long monologue? I would encourage you, no monologues, please, dialogues only. But those are some things to think about. And, if you're doing something longer, that's like, oh, this is the about me section, and it is your proper bio or your company bio or something like that, something where you're in a job interview and you need to convey different dimensions of yourself, then, give yourself that latitude and rehearse and maybe script out how you're going to say that or write that if it's in a written format.
And I'll add one thing that really helped me, and I forget who told me this, but it really sort of changed the way that I looked at things, is really thinking about what is the person, your ideal reader or listener, if you're saying it verbally, what do they actually want? So like, I can list my whole bio of Kim Kalp and founder of a marketing agency and but at the end of the day, does this person just want to hear, Kim can help me make money? I'm making that up. Or Kim can help me build communities. So yes, all that fluffy stuff is great, but people are really reading or listening to things, and what they're really trying to get out of it is, what can this do for me?
Right. What's in it for me? The almighty, what's in it for me? Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A little selfish, but kind of true.
But real. Yes, real. And if you are that person speaking your story, your introduction, whatever, you can bedazzle someone with your brevity of, I help people make money. I help people tell better stories. I help people get through IKEA with their one item. Great. Okay, then that's either a follow-up question, or they, if they're interested in that subject matter, or maybe they pivot to the where are you from, or how do you know so-and-so, etc.
Totally. And I love this. I'm really curious of your thoughts on this dialogue that Felicia and Lexi are having right now, because Felicia said, is anyone afraid to tell their story? And obviously, I'm sure, Kristina, with all of your background, you've worked with plenty of people who are afraid to tell their story and have some tactics for that. But then Lexi's point, which I thought was really interesting, was her saying, I work in cannabis and I feel enchanted and proud of what I do, but I can definitely resonate with maybe being a little intimidated or a little scared based on, you might be proud of your story, but are other people going to be, taking it the same way, which I think is a really sort of unique situation. So I'm curious what your take on that would be, Kristina, or what you would say to Felicia and Lexi about it.
Sure. I mean, I think when you're afraid to tell your story, again, who's the audience, and what's your context for the story? Is it a wound, or is something that you are looking to process, which happens often? And in the professional world, if you're still processing something, we say, then that's not really the time to write it for an audience, because it's not in service yet to an audience, but it still may be very much in service to you. And so if you need, if you're needing an audience to process some kind of story, then seek out that audience, right? We want to not say it and spray it to anybody and everybody. We want to really be judicious with our soul stories. So I think that, that's an important aspect. And I do work with people often who have sensitivities. They're like, well, I have this thing with my parents, and it's an important part of my story about why I can tell you how to be wealthy today. And I don't want to sugarcoat it. I don't want to whitewash it. I don't want to exclude it. But how do we work with this? And that really depends. Like, those are really specific circumstances. So we look at the delicacies, because what we don't want to do is mute it, right? I don't want people, and so maybe that manuscript sits for a better time. I don't know. There's all kinds of tactics to do it. And just because you're writing or telling your story to an audience who's willing to listen, doesn't mean that it has to be published or recorded or any of those things. So I think it still can be very powerful and very healing if it's that kind of story that you need work in processing.
I love Liz's point here about specifically kind of written stories. And in the corporate world, that's a resume. It's like a written story about who you are, where you've been, what you've done, what you can do, all of those bullet points. But obviously resumes, some people will tell you that a resume should be no longer than 1 page, maybe even max 2 pages, regardless of if you've worked for, 15, 20 years. So what tips can you give people that are struggling with, how do I tell my story in a succinct way in written form when maybe that's not my strongest suit?
Yeah, I would say on that part, like, I also, for Liz, like, I do have a degree in marketing and worked in all kinds of screenwriter, journalist. I worked in multiple newsrooms. I still can't do a 1-page resume to save my life. So I'd really think about, I think sometimes writing our own stuff is, like, even for screenwriters, writing our log line, which is like, if you're going through Amazon or Netflix and you're looking at that one sentence that the movie's about, like, that's the hardest thing we do. It's not writing the other, action scenes and how many different ways are we going to blow up a car or make this main character interesting. It's breaking it down into one thing. And so what we do oftentimes is we leverage colleagues, and we leverage professionals. So I would look at maybe getting into a writer. I don't know if there would be a resume writers group, or maybe you can find someone else through networking who's also looking for a job, who, if you don't have the resources to hire a professional resume writer, maybe you can leverage friends, mentors, like other people who know you that can help you say, okay, we don't need to know every newsroom you were ever in. How about just saying you worked in, a one line, you worked in news for 5 years? Like, where can you roll up the experience? Because it is hard. It's hard to edit your own story,
It is so hard to edit your own story. So I would say, Liz, this group, by the way, is perfect for that. So I would network within our community, because I'm sure there's lots of people that'd be willing to look over your resume and help you out with that. So I would say this is also a great spot. But I'm curious, do you think that it's good to have sort of go-to stories or canned stories? Because I feel like there's 2 schools of thought. Like, some people are like, yes, kind of have your 1-2, not dad jokes, but like your 1-2 go-to stories that you can tell. And then other people are more like, no, that's inauthentic. What's your sort of take on that? Or as people think about their stories, should they make them repeatable?
Well, I don't know. The thing that comes to mind is when I was in third grade, I won this contest in brownies for a poster contest, anti-vandalism, which will tell you how long ago that was, like in the 70s. And so I got this award and stuff. But I remember one of the judging criteria was just like on Dance Fever, it was about originality. And so there was this sample poster that said something like vandalism is. It was like awareness campaign. And my mom really encouraged me to be, she's like, it should be original. So don't say vandalism is. So she had me like change it to like acts of vandalism. Can you believe I remember this? But anyway, every once in a while, like I will tell that story. And I think that it's about, so for me, it's about originality. It's always about originality. And sure, I tell some of the same stories or use some of the same anecdotes over and over. I'm not, and I think it's great to have those for new audiences. Again, considering the audience, like if you're always traveling with your family of 5 and you keep repeating the Brownie Award story every single cocktail party you go to, and they've heard it 8,000 times, maybe pick a new story. So I'm a fan of refreshing the story database, but I'm also not opposed to having some tried and true favorites to trot out every once in a while. Personally, I tend to be a longer storyteller. Like I almost tell a story like it's a movie. So there's like antagonists and there's like conflict and there's stuff going on. And so I need to learn like to master the art of like a 2-minute story. And then maybe I'll be more inclined to be like, oh yeah, here's my top 10 or something.
Here's my quick go-to.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, if you kind of know, okay, I want to rewrite maybe one of the stories or add some more originality into it, or you kind of know that there's some Flawesomeness, which you talked about earlier, that you wanted to add into the story, what are some good ways that people should go about doing that?
I think going back and doing your own archaeology, so I call it story forensics, like going in and doing your story forensics and looking through, I have a guided exercise for this, but looking through, I have people pick their three stories from hopefully different times in your life, and hopefully like 10 years or more ago, as far back as you can remember. Like I gave you the example of the brownie story. And so I go back and then I give you prompts of these are the things it would take these are the things we consider in a Hollywood movie. So you're the protagonist. In this story. Your mom. So my mom is not the protagonist, even though she would be my mentor. She would be my Glinda the Good Witch, right?
Yeah.
And analyze all the elements. So analyze, what were my strengths? What were my flaws as a child? Like, oh, I was going to copy. Why? Because I didn't really know, I didn't have a strategy at age 8, right? And so what were my superpowers? What was my action plan? What did I do? What did I like doing in that story? And so what's great about going back to these, like as far back as we can go stories, is there's more perspective for us. So we can look back and we can be more willing to be like, okay, I was just going to follow the thing that somebody else did. Like we're more willing to recognize our flaws, right? Flawesomeness, and see our areas of growth. And when we do, the magic of doing the 3 is that we can see what our strengths and flawesomeness is over time, and the other elements too. Like what kind of actions did we take? Did we always have a mentor character, whether it was a parent or someone else? Was that the same person, or were we just really encouraged by that person? So we look for the similarities, and those things give us the hints for how we're motivated, how we're driven, how we inspire ourselves, like where we find the mojo to take action in our current story. And so, yes, so I love this question from Grace. Like I have goosebumps talking about this. I hope I see Jeffrey. Jeffrey's getting his nerd side peaked too. Jeffrey, there's science. There's lots of story science in this, in my programs too. So for the other nerds out there, like I'm all up into the neuroscience of it all. So that is one way to get enchanted, because you remember these things, and especially when you choose a success story. So there's a certain way, and there's lots of nuances and distinctions I make about how to take you on that path. But it's so important. Like, and I love, and I just hope that this is inspiring to some of you, if not many of you out there, because it's so important. And it's like, I feel enchanted by somebody else wanting to be enchanted with their story. So I hope you'll do it.
Well, when you talked earlier, you mentioned an outline that either, I guess, you walk people through, or where is that outline, or where can people find that outline if they're curious about it?
That's the whole process in my book and in my course. So it's not just like, here's a couple pages, boom, you're done. It's much more thorough than that. But it's also like it's all wrapped up with tons of movie examples of our favorite heroes and heroines. Through the book, I use Jason Bourne in every chapter. So if you want to see how Jason Bourne, his strengths, Flawesomeness, superpowers, his antagonists, his mentors, I map out everything for him, for Akilah Anderson, played by Keke Palmer in Akilah and the Bee, and Erin Brockovich. And I have probably 100 other movie examples that we all know and love. So if you want to go down a rabbit hole and watch all the movies you can, I suggest you watch the 3, because I think they'll help recharge when you're reading about the things. But in each chapter, I have some exercises that if you grab a journal and do them, people who like professional development love this book, because it's not the same old. It's not your derivative of our other favorites and greats in the world. It's more universal. It's new, it's fresh, and we do have the nerdy neuroscience to back it up.
Who doesn't love a little nerdy neuroscience? I mean,
a little. There's got to be a right proportion. Like, we're doing it too crazy.
Totally. And I'm excited Giacomo brought this up, because I'm sure a lot of people might be thinking about it who are joining us, who might be founders or work at a company where they say, okay, maybe I'm great at telling my story personally, Kim, but when it comes to my company, do you think about it the same way? Is it like church and state, and we kind of think about those storytelling differently? Is there a difference?
I think about it in the same way. So
okay.
When I was in my corporate life, I helped a luxury hotel company grow from $10 billion to $15 billion. And I looked at it at the time. I was into screenwriting, so I was like moonlighting as a screenwriter. And so I looked at it as my lab. I was the head of marketing and research. So imagine the playground I created for myself over there, like writing research, running the company parties and events, doing email campaigns, telling stories, like PR, media relations, all of those things. And what's interesting to me, and what is an important element of the book, is writing your goals. And so that company, during those 4 years of growth, we wrote SMART goals as a team. So like, I reviewed them with my boss, and then I reviewed them with my staff. And we did that as a group activity twice a year. So how that relates to the question about telling a great story using marketing strategies, absolutely. Because the way that a story is viewed in Hollywood is that it's about 3 things: a character who has a goal, and the obstacles the character must overcome in order to achieve that goal. Now, in journalism, we look at it more as who, why, what, when, where, and how. So we're answering kind of different questions, but story science nerds, listen up. When we tell a story in a certain way with certain elements, we are lighting up all 7 areas of our brain like a pinball machine. Now, compared to, say like I'm telling the story of, okay, hi, I'm KP. If you want to go get your one thing at IKEA in your blue bag, and you smell the Swedish meatballs and the lingonberry sauce, I'm your partner in crime. Versus IKEA's having a sale for 99 cents on baskets today. That's just a super rough, this is not a rehearsed example, but data is the sale one. Story is the little intro I gave you. when you tell a story in the right way, it lights up all 7 areas of your brain. When you use data, it lights up 2 areas of your brain. When you light up all 7 areas of the brain, your body basically produces its like mega cocktail of oxytocin and dopamine, which are our 2 most powerful hormones that our body creates. So that's what's happening when we tell these stories. And so, yes, so my thing is absolutely find a way to tell your company story and your marketing strategies using stories. Now, it doesn't have to be a Hollywood story. It doesn't have to be a Hollywood directed film to, introduce everything, but there are certain things you can carry over. The character development, whether it's a founder character or a company character. Where are your strengths? Who are your clients? So if you don't want to talk about your own flaws, like I procrastinate, like who wants to say that? Like, right, in their company story, but maybe it's the flaw or the obstacle that you're helping the customer overcome. So there's lots of ways to do it. It's longer than a 2-minute answer, but there are ways to do it and to bring, again, like I go back to the first thing I said in our chat, which is bring more you into the story. That's the thing. That's the overriding theme I see over and over with everyone's work. We seem to kind of have this corporate or this filter of some kind. And me too. I still, it's something I still have to work through sometimes to be like, is this authentic? Does this feel like a real person is talking in this movie or this copy or this email or this anything? But it can be done. And I do say, yeah, tell those stories, light up all the areas of the brain, get your customers like on board and excited and responding to what you're doing.
It's so true. And I will say people remember stories more than they remember facts,
Yes. So that's one of the things with lighting up all 7 areas of the brain. Like it does so much. I mean, I mentioned the highlights. Oxytocin, yay, dopamine, yes, but it also incites memory. It gets people emotionally involved. It makes them more likely to take action. It has all these benefits. Great book by Kendall Haven called Story Proof. Goes into the super, you can have this much nerding out if you want on that subject.
I love it. That's actually, I'm glad you mentioned that book because that was going to be one of my next questions, which is there something that you have started using or doing lately or reading or listening to that you love? Like you just feel like this has been super, super great.
Yes. Yes, it's a selfish answer, but I am currently writing screenplay number 2 this year, and I may even get to a 3rd. I'm going to see if I can show you for the nerd, just because I know like I'm in good company with nerds. There's my screenplay board.
Wow.
So that's the current one I'm working on that's outlined. But yes, so I love that.
Holy moly, that's huge.
Yeah. And I love it. Your question was love. I love it. I am re-enchanted with my own writing and my own story with that.
I love it. I'm curious, is there anything that you like in the next 6 months or the next year that you're really excited to like nerd out on or like learn a little more about, whether that's like, I really want to go down the rabbit hole about, marketing, or I really want to go down there, learn a language. I don't know, just something that you're like, I kind of want to nerd out a little bit more on this subject area.
I have to say the thing that comes to mind right now, we talked about her earlier, is Anjali. Consider her like OG. And I've got her program, the Fourfold Medicine or Fourfold Way. Someone else here knew it. And I've been shuffling my playlist when I walk in the morning, and it's like, it'll be Shakira and then Anjali. So it'll be like the way we can be a healer. Isn't it? So that's my thing that I really I'd like to do it the full way through, like in the order that she intended.
I love it. She sounds like, does she have social media or does her team have social media?
She has passed on, and I have not found her on social. I know I looked around at one point when I was writing my book because I include some of her wonderful research and her wonderful work in my book. and I didn't find her. So yeah, I meant to go back to this bookstore where, blah, blah, but I don't know. The short answer is I don't know.
Totally. Do you have any other accounts or authors or writers or maybe even brands? I guess could be companies, doesn't even have to be an individual, that you follow online, whether that's on Instagram or LinkedIn or I don't know what, that you really feel like you either learn something or they just kind of light you up. You just really enjoy the content that they put out.
I do enjoy probably some just classics that people would, I enjoy Reese Witherspoon and Reese's Book Club. And I also enjoy Mel Robbins a lot. I think she's out there like doing a lot of super practical stuff. And she's just like, hey, here's what's going on. I just really like her no BS style. And so those are two people that I follow, that I dig right now.
She's also one of those people that I find like, when does she sleep? Like when I look at like the writers, the amount of content, like Mel Robbins and Mel Robbins' team, wow, they are just putting out a ton of stuff. It's wild.
Yeah, it is wild. And I know the other day, I think I like her a lot because the other day I saw that she said, oh, I'm a homebody and I never go out and we cook at home and we don't do that much. Although I do see some social things. So I'm not sure like what the proportion is there. I'm not here to judge anybody, but I was like, oh, that sort of warmed my heart a little. Because when, I don't know about other people here, but when I'm in creative mode, I'm kind of a recluse myself, and it just keeps my head clear for other things. So I'm not sure.
I also feel like you need a little bit of that alone time. We had another guest on, Terry Rice, a couple months ago, and he talked about how he likes to go for walks, sometimes without iPods in, without anything in. And I think that that's also helpful, just to kind of be a little bit by yourself and maybe sit with your own thoughts. And I think that maybe even would help you rewrite your story a little bit. Just consuming your own stuff.
1,000%. My author clients, I give them a suggested regime or routine. And because of just all the things that it does, like firing synapses, like getting your own dopamine going, walking will do that even 15 or 20 minutes. And so there's so much we can do to get into our creative vein. And as someone who, when I was recovering from my corporate life, I'm like, no, I'm not doing anything on a schedule. And I bucked the schedule like for years. And I'm like, I'm just not doing it. And then finally I'm like, okay, how about we try to kick it up a notch? And I did it. And it's true what they say. So what you do, like physiologically, will help your mind get into the mode of creativity or whatever. So it might be like waking up and meditating, journaling, like there's a whole menu of things you can do. I have found my own routine in that, but definitely includes walking. And lately, I don't know if it's my age or the time of year or the time of the pandemic or what, but I find that the difference between the days I walk and the days I don't walk, there is a huge difference of what goes on physiologically. I'm more thirsty, so I drink more water. When I drink more water, I want more healthy foods. Just all these things that probably everybody has talked about here and there. But when you are experiencing that in your own, not only your own body, but your own work, like it's astounding the difference it can make. And when you see that happening and you see the results, you're like, okay, I'll walk for, I'll find my muse or my non-muse, my quiet, whatever the things are that work for you. It's great to do.
You're like, I will make it happen. Okay. We love, as you can see, because we're a super nerdy crew, but we love homework. So if you could give us all a homework assignment this week, it could be to try a certain breathing exercise or a show or an activity. What would be a homework assignment that you would give all of us to do by the end of the week?
I would say, okay, so this might be a multi-part homework. I would say, number one, if Steven Spielberg was going to call you up today and say, or call you up at the end of the week and you knew it was coming and say, we want to write a movie about your life. I would have you, number one, think about who would play you and what would they be, what would they, watch me everybody, they, or if you're listening, finger quotes, what would they be doing? This is, and I like that piece of homework because I used to, when I first started screenwriting, I used to say, well, if all the characters are based on me, a little bit too autobiographical in some cases, but I'd be like, well, if Julia Roberts were going to do this, she wouldn't just sit around here and mope over this broken heart. She would buy a one-way ticket to Capri and go check that out. And so my OG, and he is original gangster, screenwriting professor would always say to me, Kristina, to write, you have to live. And so
I love that.
Writing, I mean, we're all writing a story now anyway, because you're writing the story that you're living. And the distinction that I ask everybody to make is whether you're making conscious choices about what you're doing in the next 4 months, 5 months through the end of the year. Is it conscious? So if Steven Spielberg is making that call to you on Saturday morning, 7:35 a.m., who's going to play you and what are they doing?
I love it.
If anyone wants to email me or tag me on social with their answer, I would love to see that.
I would love to see that too. So I will add that. And I love that Jeff has already claimed George Clooney. So I love it. And Shelby has claimed Emma Watson. So these are all amazing choices. And I love that Alexandra's like, funnest homework assignment. Yes.
Yay.
Like it really is a fun homework assignment.
It's supposed to be fun, you guys. Life is supposed to be fun and our work can be fun, and writing absolutely should be fun. I read this stat, more nerdiness, that said something like 83% of people have some kind of wound or hurt from a creative experience as a young person. So maybe it was a, childhood English teacher or reading teacher or something where some shame came in and they just like feel like, intrinsically, like it has to be, I have to, and it's like, no, we'll do the hard work. Yes, but it can be fun, hard work. So
I love it. If people are all in and they want to keep learning from you, keep following you, keep getting your tidbits of wisdom, where is the best place for them to do that?
I'm about to re-dive into sharing lots more stuff on social. So Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, I am Kristina Paider on all of those channels. I think you have the spelling of my name right here. Private coaching, email me or message me somewhere. And my masterclass is going to become available again very soon. So there's currently a wait list. I think you've got the links. There's currently a wait list, but that is about to gear back up. And I am looking for some rock stars and want to be rock stars and people who want to play and want to move the ball in their own life and learn stuff that will apply to the whole rest of your life.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Kristina. This has been so much fun. I really appreciate it. I know you're really busy, so thank you for taking time to come and join us for coffee today. This was amazing.
Thank you so much. And thank you all so much. I've loved these comments as fast as I could read them. I'll probably have to go back. So I hope you'll follow and I hope I'll see you in other places. I'm really, really pleased to be here and thanks for your comments.
Of course. I love it. Well, everybody, I will see you next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, same time, same place. Until then, have an amazing rest of the week and such a fun weekend. And I will see you in 1 week. Cheers.